Hey everyone, back with another tutorial. So I wanted to go through this baseline that I've just created, take you through what I did and just talk you through the processing and the layers that were used. This is a new track that we're starting, and although we may make changes to this baseline down the line, this is where it is right now in context with the mix, and we have brought it up to a pretty decently good processing level, which I would say would be close to the final product, and yeah, it will definitely get close to a professional track. But yeah, with tracks, you always have to note that you're going to be changing things throughout as you add different elements, and I may add another layer, I may add some more delay, I may EQ something a little bit different in certain areas. But yeah, let's just go through this and see what we have. So I'll play the bass line for you first entirety with the drive, and then we can talk about it a little bit more, okay? Okay, so I'll play that with just the kick and sub and the bass. Great. So let's go through the individual layers first, and we'll look at what has made the bass line. And then we'll go through each layer and what processing has been put on it. So I'll play the 4 layers, and one of the things I'll say now is that when you are doing your mixing, try and find different sounds which have different textures, or they are different to each other, so they don't sound the same, and they fill out different types of spaces in the mix, and they also just give you different grooves. So we'll go through each one, and then we'll take it from there. So the first one I've actually created is a straight runner. Play the sound here. Now that sound is where it is for now. This was what I would call a lower mid layer, so it gives it the bass line as actual bass. I've got 2 of these layers, one of this one and one here. And then we've got these 2 layers which are more like your mid-highs. So maybe I'll rename this like low mid. Then I'll rename this one low bass, just to give you some context. So yeah, that one basically, I think with a lot of bass lines, people, they don't add enough bass into their bass lines, and sometimes they can sound quite thin, especially when you're making trance style mid basses. So like you have to obviously play this in conjunction with your kick and sub. Your sub is on your kick. And with that in mind, you have your low mid. I'm not entirely happy with this layer, but we'll keep it there for now because it does fill out the space nicely. But I want something in that low mid region. Just got a phaser on it. There's some basic EQ. I think we curved it off about 186. Tried to keep that controlled. Yeah, so somewhere around over the 150 mark, just sort of cut it there and put a phaser on it. Give it a slight bit of movement. Now with phasers, generally I'll put them on things which are a little bit not so low. So maybe I'll change this. Maybe I'll add an EQ, put it into an instrument rack, and just EQ the low end out of the phaser, and only phase the top line. So something like group. Then you can really just go to town on it. So if I group this, go. Do something like this, duplicate. And what that will do is the phaser will now be it's almost like a bus. So then I can just copy this, paste it in here. Now it's only EQing you're almost taking out the low end of the phasing, so it's only really phasing the higher parts of the sound. So that's a very perfectly acceptable trick to do. Cool. All right, next layer. Now this one, the pattern is a little bit variated. I would call this your, again, a mid layer, mid body. So I'd call that like a proper mid layer. So with that again, another EQ rolled off at about 119 hertz. You want to keep the bass. The bass really comes in for mid basses. Often at times I see people, they're cutting them off really, really high. And you're kind of taking away from the actual bass of that sound. So make sure you keep it in there. From there, we have the saturator on it. Like to use saturators on our bassline layers. They really do bring out the harmonics. And then we have a little bit of EQ. Now, I did this afterwards, after I added the other layers, just to blend it in. But first, I'll just kind of put those two in to bring out the bass. Next one. I would call this a mid-high layer. Notice how each sound is different. Now, in this one, I've programmed it into the arpeggiator here. So the way you do that is you just draw one straight long note. I've looked at this patch called bass sequence. So there's sequences already programmed into Spire. Then you use the arpeggiator to then create the movement of the midis. So you can see it's basically this one's blank. This one's a little bit lower velocity note. If you know what how ARPs work in Spire, you should be familiar with this. If you don't, definitely learn this. Very, very useful. And then this one goes up an octave. And you can hear that jump there. And finally, this one is the low bass layer. So he really sits in the low and just gives the bassline bass. Like I'll take you through what I've done here first. So very simple. Again, 135. Notice all of the roll-offs are anywhere between 120 to 150. I've seen a lot of people with their mid basses in trance, they roll them off at 250. It simply is just too high. There's no blanket rule for that because you need that low end. Like, sure, if it's a sort of a mid or mid-high layer, you can roll it off at 250. But with these sort of layers, the key is you got to keep the lower layers open. So definitely something you can do. Now, added a utility and made anything below 200 hertz a mono on this layer, just to keep that information in mono, because it's very similar to the sub. Again, the sub sits at 50 hertz and below, but this one it sits a little bit higher. So, with that in mind, let's play them all one by one together, and I'll turn them on so you'll understand how this works. So let's get the lower layers in first. Now the mid layer. Finally the mid-high. Now watch, as I turn each one of them off one by one, you'll distinctly hear it disappear. This is a great tip. You need to make sure that it cuts through each layer. If one of the layers, you turn it off and you don't hear that much of a difference, it means it's not doing that much. Now, sometimes layers are lower in volume. That's fine. And I'll show you that. We're actually going to do another video on another bass line that we did for a sine track, which has one main layer and 3 sort of lower volume layers, but they all do make a bit of a difference. So if that's a desired effect you're going for, great. But if you're trying to make it cut through and it doesn't, then use a different sound. You see how I turned each one off and it made a distinct difference. Nice. So, what have we done on the bus? So first, we've just done a bit of sidechain from LFO tool. Very simple. Come back with another EQ. Boosted up these mid-highs. You can see that the bass line is filling out all the harmonics. If you see this is a great indicator. Not too many highs. You've got a nice little shape here. Like, in theory, like I could get rid of this and try to boost this up a little bit more. But if we play it without the freeze, yeah, you can see it's filled out nicely. So, if I turn one of the layers off, see how it makes that hole? And that's another great tip. Oftentimes, come back to your main bus EQ and just check where the gaps are. And if you see any gaps, try to find a sound that fits into that gap, because that will probably be a great way. And I actually did that with one of the sounds here. I found a sound which specifically had harmonics in that region and it cut through. And then basically what I did was I found there was a gap here. So that's why when I went to the individual layer, I applied this kind of EQ to it. I liked that sound. I liked the harmonics within this range that it was bringing. And then I wanted to kind of cut the highs out because I didn't really need them. So yeah, you can be clever with your EQ in that way as well. Next up, Black Box. Very, very powerful saturator. Highly recommend if you don't have it for mid basses and trance, use it. So I'll just turn it on and off. Super, super powerful and bringing out a lot of harmonics from this sound. Very, very important with saturators. They don't just boost the volume, they also bring out a lot of harmonics. So, next one up. Crystal Clear by Mag Signature Sound. So, just use this minimum percentage knob. So, basically, I don't want to go into too much into what this does, but the crystal knob, it helps clear up the mix. So I'll just turn this on and off and you'll see what it does. It cuts a lot of what I would call like woody dead kind, not dead, but it overpowers too much without it on. And it's a really great tool to tighten up your bass lines because there's a lot of bass in that already. What you hear when I turn this off is actually not bass. It's more like a booming reverb almost. It's actually not good for the mix. You want it to sit a little bit more flush. So yeah, really good Mag Crystal Clear. Use the crystal just to bring that up a little bit to a desired effect, which sounds really cool once again. Nice. And finally, Vertigo VSC2, another just a great bus compressor if you don't have it for trance mid basses. A long attack, a little bit of a slow release as well because I don't want to catch the peaks. I just want to, the RMS of the sound, I want it to all just gel together. Yeah, about a 2 dB gain reduction there as well. Now, the final thing I've done is I've actually added a delay to the bus, and I've just delayed these two middle sounds. I didn't really want to delay these two layers. I just wanted to delay this layer. that's the desired effect I was going for. So, play that all together. Yeah, sounds nice. So there you have it. Just a quick tutorial. Again, I think, to be honest, after I've sort of done this video, I may change this layer into something a little bit different. If I take it away, see how this bass line. Yeah, I'm not really happy with it, but I just thought I'd actually show you that, say, make something, it fills out the frequencies that I want, so I can build the track around it for now, but is it going to be the final mixing decision I make? Probably not, and I wanted to keep that in there intentionally to show you that you don't need to get it perfect from the beginning. You can play around with this and just build your track, because I've got the groove, I've got the vibe that I want. Come back, fix it up later. You know, you've got your processing chain. Like, you've done most of the hard work. Now you've got the fun part where you can just sort of mess around with this. Yeah. All right, I'll leave it there. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. If you've made it this far, please give us a like and subscribe. Would love that. Helps the channel. And yeah, catch you in the next one.